And hello, everybody. Welcome to Equity Story. It's very happy today to have Charif Elansari, who is the CEO, Managing Director of Dropsuite. This has been an Equity Story we followed, and we've been recommending it now, Wolf, for nearly a year, haven't we?
Oh, we've been looking at it for, probably a couple of years, but we've now seriously getting into the Dropsuite story. But, trying to get into it without actually speaking to the CEO is a little bit silly. So we've got you online, Charif, and funny enough, everyone's in a different place. So I'm in Brisbane, Dave is in Sydney, and you are in Japan, apparently. So please explain to us, Charif, and welcome, by the way, just the arrangement you've got. Let's start it off. The arrangement you've got with, you're based obviously in Japan, and what, the Dropsuite, how it sort of fits in with what you do.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for following us for a couple of years, and thank you for having me for the first time. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Keep in mind that Dropsuite was first born in Singapore, but as you know, Singapore is a really small place. So if you have any ambition, you really want to start global from day one. So if you fast forward to today, we're about 70 team members in 10 different countries. The number one geography for us in terms of revenue is North America. And then, of course, our investor and shareholder base is a bit global, but obviously we are listed on the ASX in Australia. Japan happens to be in the midpoint between Melbourne and Sydney on one side and California on the other. So you fly 9 hours. Remember, this is pre-COVID-19, the decision to move to Japan from Singapore. So it's 9 hours to Sydney and Melbourne, 9 hours to California. My wife is Japanese, and we've been distributed even pre-COVID, right, as a company. And then we're like, let's move to Japan. Great quality of life we're just talking about earlier. It's equidistant to two critical areas for us. One is investor shareholders. The other one is customers. And then we made the move about 3 years ago, and honestly, we haven't looked back. It's been an amazing experience. So that's the short answer of why I moved to Japan, and a bit about the company as well.
Thank you. And I think it's a lot to do obviously with family, with your wife being Japanese and everything. So I completely understand it. So the only sort of follow-up question I've got for that then, why list in Australia? What was the reason behind that?
So this is now we have to go backward about 6 years. Now, when we were in Singapore, obviously we're a private company. We've always been SaaS, software as a service, always cloud, always recurring revenue, always a very straightforward mission of safeguarding business information. Keep in mind, 6 years ago, the VC ecosystem, both in Singapore as well as Australia, was honestly horrible. Right, and we were about to raise our next, capital raise privately in Singapore, and out of the blues, a couple of folks came from Australia and saying, "Hey, what's happening in Australia right now is a lot of companies are listing there instead of doing the typical VC kind of raising." Right, so remember, this was 2016. It was the reverse takeover story was very, very, very strong.
Yeah, they call it backdoor listings.
Backdoor listing, yeah. Exactly. So we were open, and remember, we were about 60% owned by one VC firm out of Singapore. They liked the opportunity of having a liquidity event and to be able to do a distribution for the limited partners. Obviously, I went on board as well. Obviously, I was part of the decision. And then we end up listing in Australia, like many companies that you see listing from the US and from Israel and from Singapore. We're one of those companies that have done so in December 2016.
Rightio. Look, it's obviously now we're catching up with how it all listed, but now I'm intrigued then. Your story. I'm just reading through your bio. It's very rich, and your experience is obviously second to none with working in Dell, Asia Pacific, and so on. The question is, I'm more sort of, getting back to the nitty. Well, maybe there's more relaxed type of stuff. Let's talk about your hobbies. What ticks you? What ticks you along, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, on the non-business side, I love being a family man, right? I like, it's not a hobby, right? But it is something I genuinely enjoy, right? Spending time with my family is something that I truly enjoy, and that's one of the quote unquote benefits of being grounded. And I used to travel about 40-50% of my time pre-COVID. So that's something I truly enjoy. I love reading. The whole gamut, from fiction to nonfiction, business to non-business, everything. I'm into sports as well. I play tennis and do some other things as well. I bike to work every day, which I find absolutely enjoyable in Japan.
So which city are you actually based in Japan?
We're in the biggest city in the south. It's called Fukuoka. It's about 1.5 million people. The best city to live in Japan, hands down. Really high quality of living. I go to downtown every day. It takes me 15 to 20 minutes on the bicycle. It's 8 minutes by train. If you want to go there, obviously very, very low crime and, very, very orderly city. So that's what I like to do outside of work. Inside work, I mean, I've always been described, even from, way before, I love problem solving. Like it's almost in my DNA. And I mean, it's almost like a hobby. Like I love looking at a problem and figuring out how to fix that problem, right? I mean, that's something I truly enjoy as a human being, regardless of my position.
Fair enough. It's like, I suppose, when I think about it, Dave comes with all the problems he's got in the world, dumps it on me, and obviously I try to help him out with it.
I've got 5 kids, Charif. I have lots of problems, and they're all boys. So,
oh, God bless you.
Yeah, I know. So maybe I can have your phone number. I'll give you a call. No,
that sounds like a very peaceful place, Dave. Maybe you can send your kids to Japan.
Yeah, they will get a lot of discipline here for sure. They have to clean the bathrooms and the classrooms in school.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's an excellent idea.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to get them to make their bed is hard enough at the moment, but say no more. They'll get there eventually. By the time they're hopefully 30.
All right. So let's get back on the track. Obviously, let's talk about the company then, Charif. Backup, archiving, recovery solutions. So I'm looking at the story. I'm trying to obviously understand exactly, what it does. And I suppose in those 3 words, we get it. But can you a little bit more explain exactly what the role of Dropsuite is?
Sure. I think the best way to start this conversation is to explain how the company started. You mentioned I was a multinational man, right? I used to work in Dell, and I helped build the team in Google in Singapore. So I was working in multinationals. So I was not the founder of the company. I was actually the first investor in the company. But the reason why I like the company is the founder, who's a friend of mine, actually lost his data. He lost his customer database of a previous business, and he ended up shutting down his business. Okay, so that's how the idea of Dropsuite. At that time, actually, honestly, it was called Drop My Site, because the first product was a website and database backup solution. So he lost his business and he lost all his customer information. And he's like, you know what? Backup is an integral part of the survival of any business. I'm going to build a cloud backup that's really easy to use for a small business for their websites and databases, right? I mean, that's how the company started. Now, I'm working in Google, right? And guess what? How does Google make its money? From advertising online, allowing at that time, it was mostly small and medium businesses advertising, by the way. The big guys were not there yet. I'm talking about, 2010, 2011. So I was seeing thousands of companies going online, right? They're selling their services and selling their products online. And I'm like, this founder, his name's John Freer, he's like, I want to solve one of the fundamental problems, like, how do I safeguard all this information, all this product information, customer information, etc. So I end up investing in the company, and that's the problem we solve for. So when you think about, especially now with the insane amount of cybersecurity issues, right? When you look at how do you want to be resilient as a company, right? And you think about cybersecurity, you have to think of 3 things, not one thing. So historically, people said, yeah, I will install antivirus and anti-malware on my laptop and on my email, and I'm fine. Well, we're not fine, because you've got cyber criminals who are innovating as quickly and sometimes faster than the cybersecurity software providers. So if you want to have a proper cyber resilient strategy, whether you're a small or a big company, you have to do three things. One is obviously cybersecurity software, always up to date and always installed, right? Number two, you absolutely have to have backup for all your critical files and emails and information, right? And the third one, which finally people are talking about even more now, is awareness and training for your employees, right? Because you might have the best cybersecurity solution, but if some one of your employees let the bad guy in, he or she is in, right? And nothing can save you except a good and resilient backup that is completely divorced from where your production data is, right? And that's what we do, right? We take all this critical data in SharePoint, OneDrive, email, etc. We take it completely out of that environment, right? We encrypt it and we save it in a different cloud altogether. And we make it available for search and recovery whenever you need it. And this could be from a disastrous data loss situation because of cyber security incidents. It could be something really mundane, like I lost this contract or I lost this critical email from 3.5 years ago with a vendor or a supplier, right? And we cover all these eventualities as a company.
Right. It's actually quite important what you said with that critical bit, because you just have to have it. I mean, if you're a business, you've got to protect your data, right? So you can't really get away with it and hope you're never going to get
for the best.
attacked. I mean, it's all part of it. It's like almost like death in Texas, right? It's inevitable. You need to protect yourself. It's just simple as that. So I that's why I suppose that's why I got attracted to Dropsuite in the first place. When I started reading about it, started to do a bit more research, and I thought this is great. It's something that will probably grow over the next whatever decades, right? It's never going to go away. It's getting more sophisticated, and I suppose for me, this is the sort of businesses we're looking for to invest into for the long term type of stuff. So I completely get it, and that's why I suppose I love what I love about it. So maybe from this point, then, if you can just tell us a little bit more about your actual product itself, or maybe some competitive advantages with Dropsuite. What has it got that special thing that you might attract clients to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll talk about both at the same time, right? So let's explain what we do in terms of backup, right? Because backup is a huge area. One thing that differentiates us is that we are focused on a limited set of applications that we do extremely well, right? We talked about website and database backup, email, Office 365, which covers many things, including chats and files and SharePoint, and of course, email and calendars and all these things. And we do the same thing for Google Workspace. So we are specializing in limited number of applications that have a big addressable market, right? So you want to be specialized, but you want to be specialized in a place that has room to grow. And that's what we've done. And one thing that really differentiates us is the level of sophistication and the feature set that we have in terms of the product. And let me explain. We have the most comprehensive search capability in the industry, specifically in the SMB space, which is our main focus area, right? So if you want to find something from 3 years ago for your lawyer, or you can even allow your lawyer to do the searching and auditing, you can find it in like 5 or 10 seconds, right? So we have very comprehensive search capabilities. We have a plethora of restoration options depending on what you're looking for. We are very unique in combining backup and compliance and archiving into one product, right? So historically or normally, you have a product for your disaster recovery, business continuity, and then you have another product that you have to buy for the auditors or the HR manager or for the lawyer. We combine them into one product, which is quite unique. Now, going back to the origins of the company was started, as I mentioned, by a gentleman called John. John is a bit of an ADD person. So the company was, from day one, had a DNA of simplicity, where anybody, no matter how literate or illiterate they are in IT, they can use our product. So combining this feature set with ease of use has been really fundamental to our success. This is on the end user side, the person who's using the product. Now, keep in mind that we are partner-led. That means the vast majority of our business flows through our IT reseller partners, right? And then, as I mentioned, we started in Singapore earlier. And if you really want to have a growth company, you just can't stay in Singapore, right? You have to expand globally. And here we are, a Singapore company in 2014 with a handful of employees, and we want to start expanding in the US via partners. So what we had to do was to really invest in partner integration capabilities, building the API libraries, building packages so our future partners can plug and play, basically incorporate our product into their systems. And this is something we've done extremely well. So basically it's a coin. It has two sides. One is the end user, the other one is the partner, and we do them both extremely well.
And that sort of, I suppose, shows on your continual growth phase that you've been on. And I mean, obviously we saw the quarterly that come through, and we thought, again, another feather in the cap of how consistent it is with the growth and the cash flows. And this is what probably one of the most attractive things for me is. There's a lot of companies out there, Charif, that we look at that, they've got a lot of growth, but the bottom line, they don't look after it very well. So, there's money going out left, right, and center. And I understand, obviously, there's growth, but I think there's got to be a balance to how you operate your business. And I suppose in this day and age where we've got, we had almost free money and really risk on everywhere. Now it's sort of changing. Those sort of companies that don't look after the bottom line, I think, are probably going to get suffer more than normal.
We've seen it already in the last couple of months. It's been a bloodbath in the last couple of months, I have to say. And again, I think again the company always reflects the profile of the executives in the company and the board, right? And I think my experience of working both at Dell and Google has given me this balance thing, right? You definitely want to grow, you want to scale, and you also want to use software to solve the problems. You want to use computer science to solve your problems. You don't want to use people to solve the problem. On the other hand, working in Dell helped me really manage a P&L, right? Like, because you're selling hardware, gross margins are low, and you really have to manage your P&L.
Yeah.
And we've come to I think, a happy medium, growing at 70-80% per annum, while staying slightly profitable, right? And I think that's a really happy medium.
I agree with you. I think the cash flows and the continual capital raisings that the company have to do when they burn so much cash through, it's just detrimental to the whole investment. So I commend you for that. So just looking through, like you just said, 70-80% per annum, your growth has been.
Wolf, can I just say something talking about the growth? Listening to what Shu's saying, I love the way it's simple. It's a really simple, because I think there's a lot of idiots like me who are sort of still typing with two fingers and get lost a little bit and want to, get attracted by a system that's simple to understand and simple to get trained in. Because otherwise, I think you get lost in it. So I love the simplicity about it and the way it works really well. And actually, it's something that we should be looking for here at Equistoria. I love the compliance, which is very simple, where you could just obviously through the system get back to a certain email to check what you said. I think for me, it sounds very, very good. And the simplicity of it sounds excellent.
Dave, that's why I
thank you, David.
Simple companies for you so you can understand it.
Well, I keep what they say: keep it simple, stupid.
Keep
right?
it simple, you win.
Yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
Exactly. And funny enough, Charif, whenever we look, when I look looking at companies, almost every time we speak to the CEO, it's like, we should be using these guys. Every single time.
That's always a good compliment. I've seen companies, and some of them are on the ASX where you struggle to understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's some people in security and other places like, what exactly are you doing? I would love to know that in like plain words that anybody can understand. I think that's important.
Like in one sentence would be nice, right? But there's just a lot of things out there that is just way over my head. So I'm usually trying to stay away from that. But yeah, if I can find something simple, easy to understand, of course, and I've got that big picture thing, like obviously with Dropsuite, like you keep hammering to us that it is a global thing, and I completely understand that, because businesses are not just constrained to one region; they are everywhere globally. And like you said, I'm thinking it's critical. Everyone has to use it if you're a business, really. So yeah, look, I completely get it. But just going back to the growth thing for me, and I'm trying to sort of picture myself in the next 12, 24 months. And I like the fact, obviously, you are looking at, at least being cash flow positive for foreseeable future. But what sort of rates can you sustain, say, over the next couple of years? Top line growth. I mean, revenue growth.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that we also hammer in the presentation and in our communication in general, aside from being global, is we are also blessed in an industry that's growing, right? So the overall industry, it's not like we're going against the tide. We have tailwinds, so we're executing well, and we have the tailwinds at the same time, right? And the tailwinds, which I alluded to earlier, like cybersecurity threats, regulation, which I think you're going to ask me about later, as well as the continuous migration to the cloud, right? So you've got an industry that's supposed to be growing, according to the analysts, anywhere between 20 to 24% per annum until 2025, right?
Okay.
And obviously, we are a drop in the ocean in that $22 billion market by 2025. So the way we see it is simple. We see a measure of success is to do more than 2x that in the coming 3 years, right? So if the market is growing at 20 to 24%, coming from a small base, executing well, having a solid team should naturally yield a higher growth than the market, right? And again, for me, it's like, okay, so the bottom line is it has to be higher than 2x. We're not giving detailed outlooks, in our communications, but that's kind of the bottom line for us.
Okay, well, it makes perfect sense. At least it's a ballpark figure where most investors you can sort of grab onto and go, okay, we're looking at these numbers for the next couple of years, which is absolutely fantastic anyway, because the growth seems pretty good. Like you said, that industry is super exciting for me, and it's probably at the infancy of it. We've had cybersecurity for a while now, but it's just all of a sudden, like maybe last couple of years, with all these attacks everywhere, and it's just gone global, that it's just been almost at the forefront of everything that we talk about. So going back to that question now, that's because I'm jumping around at the moment, so apologies for
Sure.
the story.
I enjoy that style, actually. It's better this way. It's more interactive.
Okay, fair enough. So that's good. So just going back to that, the cybersecurity theme itself, the products, how are you positioned with the actual cybersecurity side of things? And what sort of tools have you got to address that space for your clients?
Yeah, first of all, the industry has finally realized that, or a big chunk of the industry has finally realized that backup, as you mentioned earlier, is an integral part of the toolset, which has really been propelling our growth, in the last few years, right? So that's what's happening right now. And what does backup do, right? If you have a ransomware event and all your data is locked, right, and you're supposed to pay the cyber criminal a Bitcoin or two to get their data back, I'm talking about in a small and medium business. Well, if they delete your data, you have the exact copy of every single thing available in the backup, right? So rather than paying the money and having to go through all the hoops and hiring a negotiator and paying the Bitcoins, what you can do is say, you know what, delete the data. I have another copy of the data, right? And then I can restore it back. And guess what? Even when you're locked, you can still access your data from the backup. Each and every user in the organization can use that in the meantime until this issue has been resolved. So that's a very basic example of how backup can save the day for a business.
What percent of clients that you've got could have an issue like that every year?
Well, I mean, obviously, these things are kept close to people's chest, because they don't want to announce these things, and it comes with other implications as well. But this is an occurrence for tens of thousands of businesses every year, across the board. So you tend to hear, or we tend to hear in the news about the big boys, right? Yeah. If a bank gets hacked, or a Treasury Department, what happened in the US like a year and a half ago, we hear about those stories because they're really high profile, they're announceable, etc. But there are tens of thousands of cases that are happening all the time with small and medium businesses, right? And then when you look at what's happening in cyber insurance, right? these insurance companies are raising their premiums every year because that cost is becoming more and more prohibitive because of the prevalence of such attacks. That would be my high-level answer on how bad it is across all segments, not just the big boys.
And the other sort of specific countries where they're really professional at this, which are, sort of they say North Korea have got teams doing it, and teams in Russia. They really are professionally led operations that they're onto this.
Yeah. So if you take politics aside, right? Let's just put politics aside, because sometimes you want to hurt somebody without any commercial reason if you're talking about politics, right? But if you look at it from like you mentioned, a pure commercial standpoint, this is a highly lucrative business, right? So there is a marketplace to buy hacking tools. Okay. Some people even have like a mini call center to help you and teach you how to pay in Bitcoin, right? So you're talking about a cottage industry, highly lucrative. You almost have like open source type of hacking techniques. And these criminals are continuously scanning for weaknesses across the board. So they're not just like focusing on Equity Story or Dropsuite or Telstra. They're just scanning and looking for a vulnerability, right? And once they find the vulnerability, they get in. And then depending on what tools you have as a company, would you be able to defend yourself or not, right? So that is the most prevalent type of cyber threats. The other one is when a cyber criminal is focused on a specific company. And that's when they start sending emails, giving calls, trying to get information, hoping somebody's going to click on a link. And then it gets a lot more scary and a lot more sophisticated.
It's frightening, isn't it? Really.
It is. And some of the things you see in a sci-fi movie or some of those programs, many of it can happen really in real life.
But that's the whole reason, Charif, why I'm so interested, because this is not going to get any it's not going to die away, and people are going to stop trying to I suppose data breach and all those sort of things. It's just a growing thing. It's just, unfortunately, in this day and age, it's just getting more prevalent, all these cybersecurity breaches and so on. So for me, I don't think there was any stop. All you have to do is you're just trying to protect yourself as best as you can. And I suppose your company, like Dropsuite, has got a role to play in that.
That's right. And then the other thing that is happening as well is, remember, we go through partners. Mm-hmm. So now, not only do you have the business exposure for the end user, right, the business, there's also legal and business exposure on the partner themselves, right? So now you've got also the partner saying, hey, I'm going to have legal exposure, I'm going to have reputational exposure. I need to insist that the user or the business should deploy these 4 or 5 solutions, network security, backup, etc., because I'm also on the hook. And that's the other thing that changed in the last 2-3 years. So you've got the push and the pull from both the end client and the partner or the IT service provider. But despite all this, there remains a lot of people who don't have backup.
Yeah, it's almost like, to me, right? This is the simplest I can think of. It's like buying a car. You need insurance with that, right? And the insurance you're buying with you guys is you're protecting your data here. And that's how I sort of trying to understand how critical your range of products are.
That's right. And what we try to do, and of course, with varying degrees of success, is how do you boost the utility of the product beyond the time when something bad happens, right? Like it's great, okay, that you have the peace of mind and you have your insurance. But the question is, how can you also use our product beyond that incident that might happen every year or once every few months? So what we've done is we did talk a little bit about compliance and archiving, right? Like how do we equip our HR manager or lawyer or auditor to sift through the data, discover things in case of a lawsuit or just to do an audit, right? So that's one utility that we created successfully. The other utility that we created was to embed something called insights and analytics into the product. So our product, for example, can measure email responsiveness. How responsive is your team to responding to emails to external and internal users? Work-life balance. I mean, how many hours of the day is your team working? Is your team overworking? And are they responding to emails over 18 hours a day or 16 hours a day, right? Who are the most active senders and receivers of emails? And things like this. So that's also another way for us to work on boosting the utility of the product, in addition to having it as an insurance product.
Fascinating. To be honest, I didn't even know. So again, it just shows with your product suite how you can add on value to clients. And I suppose I've seen over the last couple of years, you have been add on actually new modules to your suite.
Correct.
Which is obviously part of the growth profile of why you've got a very consistent type of growth from my perspective, which maybe brings me to the next sort of question I have got, because you have mentioned it a couple of times, maybe once, especially when you raise some cash, that maybe there's some also, while organic growth is great, there might be some opportunities in the M&A space. So the question is there something on the horizon that potentially Jobs should be looking at, or what are we looking for the next 12 months? Is it?
Yeah. I mean, that's we reached a point, and this is mentioned in the presentation that you have on the screen. Is this partner model has been scaling beautifully, right? I mean, we've, I would say, almost an explosion of partners in the last 2-3 years. And I'm not talking about just the partners that signed a contract with us. I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of partners who are buying through wholesalers or distributors, right? So you've got this beautiful ecosystem of happy partners, and that's reflected in black and white with our very low churn of sub 3% per annum, which is absolutely world class, right? So we continue building things organically, but we are also very open, and we raised the money just for that late last year to look into complementary services in data protection that could be cross-sold to our growing base of partners, right? At the same time, we said that we are going to be discerning. We want the right company. We want companies that are accretive. We want the culture fit. We want high quality of products. And those do exist, and we're sifting through them and talking to some of them, and all these things are happening as we speak. But I tried really hard to not to paint myself in a corner and say it's going to happen in 3 months or 2 months, because it drives the person who says this becomes irrational sometimes, right? You start wanting something to look good so you can check your commitment to the outside world or to the investors and shareholders in this case. So I try to avoid timelines, but you absolutely, M&A is on the horizon. I can publicly say that.
Yeah, and that's fair enough with your answer, especially because I normally get very nervous when a company talks M&A, because it could be a hit and miss. You just never know what the company might actually do, especially when it's going fairly well on its own, under its own organic steam, so to speak. So for me, when a company looking outside, maybe looking for complementary business, there's always a question mark in my head. Why are you looking for something if it's going well? But I get it. Sometimes there is an opportunity, you go for it, and you obviously could be very successful.
My theory, Peter, is it's better to be paranoid when things are going well. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to wait until something bad happens X years from now and you start scrambling to do things, that's when you make the wrong decisions. So for me, it's like, okay, we've grown this channel amazingly well, and we continue to delighting our partners. The economics clearly point that if we expand our product base, we would be getting benefits in the subsequent 12 months and 24 months and 36 months post acquisition. Why not look and be discerning? Now, it's important to mention that we did raise the money early, right? And we asked the investors who put the money in to take a leap of faith with us. And that was for a very simple reason. When we look at our acquisition targets, they're mostly not going to be in Australia. Mostly. They're going to be mostly in North America, maybe in Europe. So those guys have no idea about how the public market works in Australia, how easy or difficult to raise money. So we thought we raise the money first, have that pot of money, in cash, and then we have a much higher level of credibility when we're talking to the targets, right? Versus a company that has like a couple of $1 million in the bank, right? And that's why we ended up asking our, the people who participated to take a leap of faith with us, because we wanted that credibility as we take this discerning approach on what to acquire.
Right. So can I ask, maybe expanding little bits on that, maybe you can't say it anyway, because it's probably really a bit early, but what sort of complementary things would you be looking at to add to the product suite portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm perfectly comfortable covering ideas about what constitutes a good company. So we have a basic mission, right? Simple mission. We safeguard business information. We help businesses stay in business, right? Taking a page from how the company started in the beginning.
Yep.
But when you look at that, you're seeing companies adopting SaaS solutions for everything, right? For their CRM, ERP, accounting software, HR systems, everything is moving SaaS, right? So just like we're protecting today, we're protecting Office 365 from Microsoft, we could be protecting in the future like a CRM or accounting software or HR software. I mean, that's a very natural extension of our products. Some of those can be built in-house, some of those can be acquired. Another example, we talked about the concept of insurance, right? We talked about how backup is amazing, but after the fact, right? How about we also look into something that is proactive security? Like how do we prevent things from happening, right? In terms of not allowing data to leak and making sure data stays where it's supposed to be. And you've got like, a company has 25 SaaS applications right now that they have to manage, right? So that's another area that is complementary to what we do. So these are two examples, reactive and proactive, both equally important.
Rightio. And look, I wish you luck with all that. It's obviously looking through a lot of companies and running a business. It might be, there's obviously a lot of focus that has to go into this sort of stuff. So I hope it all works out for you. Last question, if I can.
Of course.
Before we let you go. And that's looking for the next, we talked about already the growth, which is fantastic. I just want to know, because I'm always intrigued to say, okay, because whenever you talk to a CEO, they always tell you the good stuff, right? You never see the bad stuff. It's always what you want to hear, la, 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 I'm all beautiful, it's all working. So, however, I really want to know if there's anything in the business that you need to work on a bit harder. Is it, what are the challenges that you might face over the next, say, 12 to 24 months?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an important question, and that's how part of my time is spent, right? It's not always the shiny stuff, right?
Yes.
So I mean, I'll mention a couple of things. One is, no matter what we do, we'll always continue to be work in progress, and that is data protection for us, right? So remember, we as a company, we are our partners and customers' last resort for data, right? So having a high level of resilience that continues to be enhanced is something very important. Like, how do we ensure we have the right security cadence inside the company, the right approaches? We working with third-party security companies to try to do penetration testing to basically, it's called white hacker, right? To people to try to hack us, to see where are the issues, how do we get the right certifications? So that's always going to be a challenge. Right? I mean, it's not just for my company, but for my company, it's ×2, because we are the last resort of our customers and partners. That's not going to go away. And that will be continue to work in progress, and something that's high on our risk register, and something that we continue improving on. And we're quite mature for our age, but of course, always need to improve. Okay, that's number one. The second one is we're a team of 70, right? So scaling the team while retaining culture and having the right bench strength is something that I'm working on, right? We have a really good culture so far. I put so far to make sure that we have humility and don't take it for granted. We finished our engagement survey for the team. We do it annually in November. 100% anonymous, 95% participation rate. 95% said they are proud to tell others that they work at Dropsuite. 95%. And this is across 10 different countries, 12 different nationalities.
And
I think the whip out with this other 5%, Charif. What's going on?
He fired them. He's now got
100%. I'm fired now.
He's got 100%.
The other one I'm very proud about is 95% said they can be themselves working at Dropsuite, right? So they have the psychological safety, right? So maintaining that as we go from 70 to 100 and then 100 to 200 with the right bench strength is something that I work on very proactively as well. And it's something we need to continue working on. I mean, these would be two excellent examples, I think, of what things that keep me up at night, quote unquote.
Well, I think that, having that culture in the business is so important, and having everybody on board and everybody's on the same boat and everybody's cheering. And I think it's maybe one of the hardest things, which I don't think we talk enough about, is it? Keeping people on board, especially now with the, I know, inflation around the world and shortage of labor in a lot of countries, where you're trying to keep good people and you've got to keep your costs down. It's not easy to manage it all.
That's right. One thing we've done here, of course, having the good culture, but we combine that. We call ourselves the hungry owners as a team, right? So we're hungry, but at the same time, I have made sure, and the board has made sure, that every single employee in the company has shares in the company in the form of performance shares or rights that will eventually become ordinary shares, very tightly linked to shareholder value. So we are hungry. At the same time, we're owners. That means we don't take unhealthy shortcuts to get what we want, right? And that's something I'd like to retain as long as humanly possible in the culture of the company.
All right.
Fantastic.
Yeah, very good. And Wolf is very happy because he's loved your company for a long time, and I'm certainly very happy. And I'm definitely going to speak to
Thank you.
the powers to be for Equity Story to have a look at you, because I like the fact it's simple to work and not too complicated, because I think often a lot of these security devices that get too complicated, after about 2 months you switch it off and think, hold on, I'm totally lost here. So I love the fact, Charif, it's simple, easy to use, and obviously your success and growth is proof of that. There's nothing better than we always stay at Equity Story, look at the numbers, and your numbers have been absolutely fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you. We'll keep at it. Thank you.
On that note,
again, thank you from me as well. And lucky I spoke to you. I had the sell button done, and I needed to speak to you to see how you're going. Just kidding. No, everything's going well, Charif. You've done very well. So well done.
That's funny. Thank you, guys. I really enjoyed it.
Speak again soon.
Hopefully we see you in Australia post-COVID. So I'll be looking forward to that.
At least we know where to stay now when we come to Japan.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Have a great day.